this video is going to run through the last little bit of characteristics from the day 3 notes. So, picking up where we left off on the last video is end behavior. End behavior is just like what it sounds like. It's what is the behavior at the two ends of the graph, being the left side and the right side. So if your graph opens up like this, is that U shape with the arrows going up, then both sides are going up. And they're never going to stop going up. They're going to go up forever. So we would say that our y values approach infinity. Whereas if it opens down, those arrows go down, and they go down forever, meaning they approach negative infinity. So if you look at your graphs, remember that even if those arrows aren't in there, which they should be, but even if they're not, you can draw them in, because they should be there. Sometimes when we're making these pictures of the graphs, the graph program that we use doesn't let us put in those arrows because we're just taking a snippet of the graph. So it knows that it goes on forever, but it won't always add those arrows. So you can always do that. So for end behavior, all you do is look at those arrows. If they're going up, then our end behavior would be f of x, or our y values go to infinity. If they go down, then it goes to negative infinity. So it's always going to be the same, and it's always either going to be positive infinity or negative infinity. Intervals of increase and intervals of decrease. Now, when you're doing this, the first thing I want you guys to always do is draw in your axis of symmetry. And remember that you always read from left to right, just like you read words. That's how you read graphs. So I'm going to follow my own advice. And I'm going to start with drawing in my axis of symmetry. So here's my vertex, which means this is my axis of symmetry. I'm going to go and do it over here while I have a highlighter in my hand. And then I'm going to start on the left side of my graph and go to the right. There's always going to be one section that's increasing, one section that's decreasing. It just depends on what your graph looks like as to which is which. So if I start on the left, this is the left part of my graph, this half of my graph is going down. My pen is going down as I'm tracing it. So this side is decreasing. Then if I look over here, so I just finished up decreasing. Then on this side, it is now increasing. So I'm going to start with my interval of decrease, just because I did it first on the left. If I look at these x values over here, so everything on the left side of that purple line, if I look at these x values, are they bigger or smaller than that one that's right here? This is 1. These numbers are all smaller than 1. So for my interval of decrease, it's wherever my x values are less than 1. For my interval of increase, all these numbers are bigger than 1. Same thing on graph 2. Start at the left. This time, my graph is increasing first. It's going up. Then it's going down. So my interval of increase, because that's what's on the left, so I should always work left to right. These numbers, these x values are smaller than that negative 1. So for my interval of increase, because this side was increasing, my x values are less than negative 1. Whereas my interval of decrease, which is the right side, has numbers that are bigger than negative 1. So again, this negative 1 is coming from the axis of symmetry. This positive 1 is also coming from the axis of symmetry. Numbers on the left are smaller, less than. Numbers on the right are bigger, greater than. You just have to know whether that is increasing or decreasing. Alright, and then the last part, this is my least favorite part, is positive and negative. And it can get really confusing really quick. So positive is wherever your graph's above the x-axis. Negative is everywhere it's below. So I like to shade mine in 2 different colors just so I can visually see, okay, this is one part, this is another part. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's just kind of like a little tip that might help you out. So I know everything above is positive and everything below is negative. So I'm going to start with my positive part. I have 2 sections of this graph that are positive. It's positive right here, and it is also positive over here. Since there are 2 parts that are positive, I'm going to have 2 inequalities. So this first one, I'm going to kind of use my x-intercepts as boundary lines. All these x values over here where it's positive, because it's positive on the left of this, so everything to the left of this is positive. It's all up here, and it would keep going up forever. All these values are smaller than that -1. So I'm going to have x is less than -1. And, because there's a second section, it's also on the right side of this x-intercept, because everything on the right is positive. It's all above the x-axis. It would keep going up, and it would keep going to the right forever. These numbers are all bigger than 3. So that leaves my negative part. Now there's just one negative section. That's this part right here. This is what is negative. There's only one negative section, and it's negative from -1 all the way to 3. So we would say that it's negative when x is in between -1 and -3. So on graph 2, the same type of thing. I always go from, well, it's up to you if you want to go from left to right or positive and then negative. I'm going to do positive and then negative and kind of break my left to right rule for once. So if I look at the part that's positive, that's everything above the x-axis, there is one big positive section. And the x values that it's positive from are from -3 to +1. So it's positive when x is in between -3, +1. Then there are 2 negative sections. So first it's negative right here. This is where your x values are less than -3, because numbers on the right here are less than -3. And the left or the right side over here, where these numbers are bigger than 1. I'm actually going to go ahead and just do these 2 because I think this is the most confusing part of what we do. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So remember, positive is on the top. That's where I'm going to start. I have 2 positive sections here. I have this section and I have this section. If I look at these x values, so everything on the right, the left side here, these numbers over here, it's on the left, are all less than -4. And these numbers on the right over here are all bigger than that number, which would be 0. Which means my part that is negative from -3 all the way to 0. Or -4, sorry. -4, not -3. So from -4 all the way to 0. One more. So my positive side, it's on top. this has one big positive section. So remember, when it's one section, it's going to be written in this weird inequality like these. It's positive from -1 all the way up to 5. Then for my negative part, it's negative to the left of -1. So all these numbers are less than -1. And it's also negative on the right of 5. And all these numbers are bigger than 5. So just a reminder about tonight's homework. You have 3 problems on the back to do. So you're going through all the characteristics on these 3 graphs. And let me grab the other sheet. In case you forgot what this looks like. Finishing. Highlighter was wet, stuck to my paper. Finishing this transformation sheet. So we did over half of this in class, so you don't have a ton to finish on this, so just knock that out. Knock out these 3 graphs, and then if you guys are good with that and you understand what you're doing, when we check homework tomorrow, you get them all right, then that means that you're in good shape for your quiz.